So but in Islam, the decision to kill and enslave little girls, and that's for sex slavery. There's no doubt about it.
No,
it's
in
slavery.
The law. It's slavery, but sex is like intercourse is within the law of slavery.
Yeah,
so
for you guys, not for us.
Yeah.
When we had the Atlantic slave trade, Africans were taken across the Atlantic to Brazil, to North America, but they were never taken. You could never have them as sex slaves, never, because those men were Christians who took them, and they would only be allowed one sexual partner. That's their single wife, their one wife. If you start having sex with a female, whether she's a slave or not, you're in a state of what we call mortal sin, and even the Protestants regard that as sinful. But in the Arab world, you could have harems of adult females and of little girls who are your sex slaves. And this we regard as utterly reprehensible, because the little girl could be sold on and on and on to many men. And
I believe that in terms of intercourse with slaves, it's not permissible to have intercourse with a slave that's been bought a specific amount of times. So if you buy a female slave from a man, I'm not entirely sure on this, but you cannot. There are rules to have an intercourse with female slaves, from which you cannot have intercourse with a female slave that you've bought from another man, because that way then you can kind of pass her out between each other, and that's not permissible.
But you see, if you're buying a woman, a female, it could be an adult female. To me, it's bad enough, and it'd be a little girl of 9, because Aisha was 9 when Muhammad first has sexual intercourse with her.
Yeah.
And so you could be doing that. She's a slave, and it's effectively forcing her to perform acts which she hasn't freely chosen to do. And of course, a 9-year-old, in my view, cannot give consent to that. And so this, to me, is a reprehensible moral code. And we can see that, because if it happened in the Western world today, it would be regarded as absolutely scandalous.
If I'm honest, I don't see the West moral standard as kind of a higher.
Neither do we. We don't see it as a high moral standard, because the West moral standard before you were born, say the 1930s or the 1950s, there was none higher. It has gone degenerate because it's departed from the Catholic faith. What you've got now is the most degenerate form.
Yeah,
so we forget about today, and both you and I could have a good laugh about that. You know, my gosh, I could say things which, well, I won't. But what we don't want to do, we want to go back, we want to backtrack to what we were when I was born. When you were born, England then was a country to be proud of.
What?
But what we are now is scandalous. But we don't want to go on to a religion which would have sexual slavery, or in fact crucifixions, or waging war on people until they submit or pay the jizya.